Nikki Haley zeroing in on Donald Trump. I'm Kevin Cirilli. It's time for the Daily Debrief. Let's get right to it. January 6th, the third anniversary, is now front and center in presidential politics. President Joe Biden heading to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, where he will return to the campaign trail to deliver remarks about the Capitol riot. He will say that democracy is front and center on the presidential ballot in 2024. Former President Donald Trump is heading to Iowa ahead of the Iowa caucuses, where he is scheduled to convene two presidential rallies on the anniversary of the insurrection at the Capitol. This as around the country, states are now working to remove him from the ballot. But last night, the race for second place was on full display as GOP presidential hopefuls Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis took center stage in back-to-back CNN town halls in Des Moines, Iowa. Both candidates made a similar pitch to Iowans. A vote for front-runner Trump could cost the party the White House.
And we all know that's true. Chaos follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it.
Donald Trump is running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues. I'm running for your issues.
Now, regardless, Trump is leading the Republican field by double digits in Iowa and New Hampshire. As of today, according to the crosstabs, 51.4% of voters in the Hawkeye state support Trump, and 18 and 17%, just a 1 percentage point difference for DeSantis and Haley, respectively. Now, Haley is performing much better in New Hampshire, where she's got 29.7% support, and you compare that with Ron DeSantis, who's at 7.4%, and in fourth place, still behind Chris Christie. So Trump is topping the pack in the Granite State with 41.6%. Trump, meanwhile, he's also filed an appeal against Colorado state officials from barring him on the ballot after they said he violated the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment, and we're getting word that the same action from state officials in Massachusetts is also developing. So joining us now to provide some legal clarity on this is David Schoen. He is Donald Trump's former defense lawyer who represented Trump during his second impeachment trial. David, thank you for joining us. So walk us through procedurally what the Trump legal apparatus is doing as it relates to Colorado and how this ultimately likely will end up at the Supreme Court.
All right. Well, I think the Colorado case is really the centerpiece now. Everything else will flow from that. As you know, Maine followed suit with Colorado, but a very different procedure there. The Secretary of State of Maine, a Democratic official, no legal training whatsoever, made a conclusion that he should be barred from the ballot, from holding office. And that's being appealed to the Maine Superior Court. But the Colorado Supreme Court really teed up the issue for the United States Supreme Court. A petition has been filed by the state GOP in Colorado and by the Trump team asking the Supreme Court to hear the case. Another group of voters in Colorado has asked the court not to hear the case and to just uphold the Colorado decision if they do hear the case. Essentially, the court in Colorado split 4-3, the Supreme Court, finding that President Trump, first of all, that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which bars the holding of office of certain candidates for public office, if that person engaged in insurrection or rebellion. The court found that all the criteria was met, and therefore Donald Trump should be barred. There are many, many significant holes in the court's holding. I don't think it can possibly be upheld. The United States Supreme Court is going to have to take the case and reverse it. It may reverse it by summary order, frankly, because there's so many reasons it shouldn't apply to bar Donald Trump from the ballot or from holding office. But it may hear the case, take briefing on the merits, and hear oral argument. But ultimately, it's got to reverse the Colorado decision. And all of the other ones against Trump should fall by the wayside. By the way, most of the decisions in most of the states have gone in Trump's favor. Michigan and Minnesota taken a little different tactic. They haven't really relied on the 14th Amendment, Section 3. They've said that a political party has the right to put on the ballot for the primary any candidate it wishes, even ineligible candidates. And so it would revisit the question during the general election. But the Colorado case will resolve all of that.
That's what I want to hammer home here is that so you're anticipating that the Supreme Court of the United States will take up the Colorado case. But when do they have to do that by? Because, David, the Super Tuesday, when Colorado's on the ballot, is at the beginning of March. And these ballots are going to start to get printed. So the Supreme Court arguably would have to get this done by when to prevent any electoral confusion.
Well, that's a great question. It's a very important question. And in ballot access litigation, that often can, turn the tide one way or the other. That is the need for rapid decision in a case. In this case, he's on the ballot already, and that's been stayed. So if they can't hear the case because of time constraints, then the status quo must remain, and he should stay on the ballot. But the main issue is really the printing of the ballots, as you note. And before the election, even before a primary, the UACAVA ballots, that is the overseas ballots for service people and absentee ballots, have to go out 45 days before the election, and they have to have the candidates on them. So the court's going to have to act very rapidly. They originally had ordered a response by February 5th, but a response was filed even faster than that to try to expedite it. So we'll see now. The Trump team is entitled to file a reply, although there's not really a deadline for that.
So if the Supreme Court strikes down the Colorado decision, does that make every other state a non-starter? Does that automatically toss those out? Is this all settled after the Supreme Court rules on Colorado?
Yes, because the Supreme Court's going to have to rule that Article the 14th Amendment, Section 3, doesn't apply in this case, either because it doesn't apply to the President of the United States or because it's not self-executing. It requires federal legislation in order to act as a bar. Maybe there is federal legislation. That would be the insurrection statute under 18 U.S.C. 2383. If that's the case and there are constitutional safeguards that have to be met and haven't been met in this kind of process, there are a lot of other textual questions on why it shouldn't apply. Due process demands that it not apply. So if they make any of those findings, then yes, no other state could bar him from the ballot or from holding office.
David, you worked and represented former President Trump during the impeachment proceedings. When they were going on, was your team planning for exactly what's happening now?
I wouldn't say so, really, and I wouldn't really say we were a team particularly. I was hired separately from the other folks, and frankly, President Trump had asked me to handle the whole thing myself, but I just felt I needed some assistance. So the other fellows were picked by somebody else. No, I don't think that we had this in mind, really. There was always the idea that they're never going to let go. The Democrats would never let go. And in fact, Jerry Nadler said it in, I think, 2019. He said, we can't trust the voters, meaning they have to continually come up with extra ballot sort of efforts to keep Trump off of the ballot. And that's why I think you see this confluence of four criminal prosecutions coming at the same time. These are all efforts to keep him off the ballot, in my view, at least.
All right, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, David Schoen, for your time. And again, just walking us through the timeline likely of what's going to happen. And again, David just reiterating there that this has to get settled before those ballots get printed, which is why folks are saying that early February is likely when the Supreme Court will rule, so that the brave men and women serving our nation in uniform are able to vote in Colorado in that primary. Thank you, David Schoen, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And happy first week of 2024. We made it. It was a long month this week, my friends. I'm Kevin Cirilli. It's time for your weekly rewind. 216,000 jobs were added to the U.S. economy in December, smashing past economists' expectations. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 3.7%, and this remains the longest period of time since the mid-1960s that U.S. unemployment has remained below 4%. Israeli Defense Forces killed Hamas leader terrorist Saleh al-Aouri. Israeli officials are telling Washington they are shifting to a new phase of their war against Hamas, withdrawing 5 brigades from Gaza. The death toll has now surpassed 22,000 lives per Palestinian officials. House Speaker Mike Johnson and fellow Republicans had a front row seat to the migrant crisis. In video taken at the southern border, immigrants can be seen crossing the Rio Grande in real time as Republicans convened a press conference on the state of the border.
One thing is absolutely clear. America is at a breaking point with record levels of illegal immigration. And today, we got a firsthand look at the damage and the chaos the border catastrophe is causing in all of our communities.
Meanwhile, back in Washington, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that coming up with a bipartisan immigration solution is easier said than done.
This immigration system has been broken for decades, and we need to have a bipartisan agreement to move forward on how to deal with the system.
Republicans and Democrats are divided on the issue of H.R. 2, which Republicans say must be included in the budget talks ahead of the January 19th partial government shutdown deadline. Epstein's damning docs have been unsealed. Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, billionaire Glenn Dubin, and Donald Trump landed on the list, but there's been no new allegations of wrongdoing. A father of one of the students at Perry High School is sharing the horrifying details of a text message he received from his son when a student gunman opened fire in Perry, Iowa. Kevin Shelley told the Des Moines Register that his son texted him just moments after the shooter began firing at the school, asking for help. 5 people were injured, and one 6th grade student was killed. The shooter took his own life, according to authorities. Claudine Gay resigned as the president of Harvard University. Gay has been plagued with plagiarism allegations. She also received bipartisan criticism following her testimony before Congress last month about anti-Semitism on college campuses. The U.S. national debt has surpassed $34 trillion for the first time in history. Democrats and Republicans are concerned about the debt but have different ways to solve the problem. Democrats want to tax the rich. Republicans want to cut government spending. President Biden and former President Donald Trump will hit the campaign trail on the 3rd anniversary of the January 6th Capitol riot. Biden will deliver remarks in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and Trump will head to Iowa for campaign rallies. Nikki Haley is hoping to continue her momentum in Iowa in the race for second place, where Decision Desk polling has her within 1 percentage point of Ron DeSantis. Polls in New Hampshire have her within 4 points of Donald Trump. And that does it for today's Daily Debrief. My name is Kevin Cirilli. Be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.